Thank you all for joining. The webinar will begin at 12. Thank you all for joining. The webinar will begin in 1 minute.
And welcome everyone. It is noon straight up. My name's Katie Brooks. I am the Bend Chamber of Commerce CEO, and I'm happy to welcome you here today to our series as part of the Small Business Recovery Partnership. It is a group of organizations that have been working together to find out what is it that businesses need to get through this pandemic, the economic downturn, and into the light, as it were, and transition into something durable and that can survive and grow as we all get back to hopefully what's closer to normal in this coming year. The organizations that are part of this partnership is the Bend Chamber and Opportunity Knox, which is a peer-based support group, and then OSU Cascades, their CoLab, and Central Oregon Community College Small Business Development Center, East Cascade Works, which is a state workforce agency, and Looking Forward, which is a group of community leaders who are wanting to make life better here in Bend. And today we are going to talk about the exciting fields of bookkeeping and accounting. And as somebody who started their own business, I'll tell you, they are essential to understanding how to grow, how to survive, and really how to make your business more solid and navigate maybe some territories, some waters that you're not used to navigating, essential to your business lineup. So today we want to introduce you to the concepts of what's the difference between an accountant and a bookkeeper, how can you use them to help your businesses grow. I know a lot of you probably applied for a PPP loan. You know exactly what I'm talking about, because if you didn't have some sort of QuickBooks or accounting or bookkeeping setup, you found it probably a lot more difficult to navigate that process. So these experts today are going to help you understand what this piece means to your business. So who we have with us today are three speakers. We have Heather Mcnegan. She is partner and CPA at Price & Frank. And then Daniel Kiefer, also a CPA at Price Frank. And then Margot Cartwright is joining us. She's the principal bookkeeper at the Business Butlers. All three of them have a little bit of a different topic to share with you on what their certain aspects will bring to business and what type of things you should be thinking of as a business owner or running somebody else's business. So the format today is going to be, we're going to have a few presentations, high-level overviews, and then we'll leave the end for a Q&A. And then at the very end, we're going to share in the chat box a link that you can go to get more information and more resources from the Small Business Development Council if you want to dive into this a little bit deeper. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first speakers. Heather Mcnegan and Daniel Keeper both work for Price Frank. They're going to be diving into the accounting world, what it means to you, what it means to life in general, and the goodness it can provide you as a business owner. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you two.
Let's start the video first.
Go ahead.
Can you see us? All right. Hi, everyone.
There we go.
Oh, can you? Oh, there we go. Start your video. Okay. Can you see us okay?
Yep, you're good to go.
Okay, perfect. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Heather, and this is Dan from Price Frank. It's been a long and very unknown and really, really long last year for everyone. Kind of as Katie was talking about, I think most small businesses have realized, kind of by default, how important their finances are. The amount of calls that we got this last year of, hey, my bank, I'm trying to apply for PPP. I need my books. They need this and that, tax returns. And our first question was, all right, let's see your books and records. We can get that ready for you. And a lot of times it was, I don't have that ready. So I think there was definitely some maybe missed opportunities. People really trying to figure out how to get their records in order this year, which I think was, it was a struggle because everyone was really busy, but I think it really did help a lot of small businesses. So we are really, really excited to help and give us some tips and some advantages as to why it's important to have a CPA and a bookkeeper. And I'm going to let Dan start off with a quick little real life story of how having a CPA could help.
So personal information about me that most people don't know is that my dream job is to drive a snowplow. That's my dream retirement, is to work in the worst possible weather, 30 or so days a year, driving around in the most awesome vehicle that's on the road. And this is a great illustration of what it means to be ready for your next big business opportunity. If the county called today and said, Dan, we're going to make your dream come true. You can drive the snowplow. We'll pay you $80,000 a year. I would be thrilled, but I would also need some really strong financial records. I'd probably need to take out a loan to buy a vehicle of that size. And the county might also want to see a financial forecast. They might want me to present them with a cash flows or some other statement to display that I'm capable of carrying out that task. And in addition, in order to obtain a loan, I'm probably going to need a schedule of my assets and liabilities so that the bank can trust that I'm solvent, essentially, that I can move forward with this opportunity. So if you take one thing from this presentation today, I think it's that your books and records, as well as a plan for how your business finances are going to take place, you can always edit it as you go along, are in place so that you're ready for business opportunities when they present themselves.
All right, so Margot is going to go into a lot more detail on the importance of a bookkeeper. We just wanted to quickly explain kind of just a rough overview of the difference between the two. So a bookkeeper is going to be the one who's going to, do day-to-day transactions. Who owes me money? Who do I owe? Do I have any loans? How much cash is in the bank? By the important day-to-day transactions that the bookkeepers help you through and record depending on your level of bookkeeping, that's going to get you to the point where you can go to a CPA and have records that are, the CPA is going to take them from there and they will be able to, help you dial in a balance sheet. A lot of people don't really, business owners really they know what their income is, they know what their expenses are. And having a difference between the two is really going to help especially come tax time. Let's see. So a CPA, we're going to make sure you have an accurate balance sheet and profit and loss. We're going to go through and prepare the tax returns, financials, tax planning. We can really look at the numbers and make sure that, if you have questions, if you're looking for a loan, really help you with those future business decisions. I would say this last year, we were really there for the clients, but they had to have the records in place. So we could tell them, hey, yeah, it makes sense to do the PPP. Yeah, you should take out a loan. People really lean on their CPA for, maybe a little more than we need to know about their personal life, but they really gain the trust in their CPAs and bookkeepers as well. But really lean on them to help them with, important decisions. So it may not, they can come to that conclusion themselves, but it's nice to have the support to talk through decisions, to really get through this last year. It was really tough for a lot of people. The CPA is just going to be more of a high level bookkeeping, just to produce some different stuff for you. Dan is going to touch on a few specific examples of why the balance sheet and profit and loss are important. Go ahead, Dan.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. So
no, you're fine.
To make what Heather says a little bit more concrete, I wanted to just mention a couple of balance sheet items that exist out there, like fixed assets. So in my example, the snowplow, that might be a $200,000 asset, and I'm certainly not going to go out and pay cash for it, even if I had the money. I would probably finance it over 5 or 7 years so that I can make money on my snowplowing business over that time and pay for that equipment over the time period that it's generating revenue for me. Also on the balance sheet, you have items like working capital and short-term liabilities. So that can come in a variety of ways. That can be a line of credit, can be a short-term liability that helps you buy inventory or pay your employees to make sure you've got cash in the account at the end of the month. It can also be
I think they click on the screen thing. Okay.
It can also be just advances that you receive from your customers. So if you've got a customer that's willing to pay you some of your revenue in advance, that's a great thing. They're still going to want to see your books and records beforehand to make sure that you're in a position where you can deliver on the promises that you made to them. Sometimes short-term financing can also come from your suppliers. There may be suppliers that will allow you to pay in 30 or 60 or 90 days, and that can provide you with inventory that you can use to meet your customers' requirements. So there's also a lot of those working capital and short-term liability items that your CPA can help you.
Heather and Daniel, can I
Yeah.
interrupt you just a second? Are we supposed to be seeing some slides right now?
Did you lose the
Did they go
slides?
away?
You need to hit the green share screen button,
Okay.
find your slides, and then say share screen.
Maybe click on her up there.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. So go back to that. Click on the slide, that one. Yeah, and share.
Perfect, thanks so much.
Okay, sorry about that, guys.
There we go.
Okay, is that better?
Sorry for the technical difficulty.
Perfect, no
Okay.
worries.
So lastly, I think that having good financial records, not just a balance sheet, but also your profit and loss, can help you make decisions about product mix. There's no finance or accounting discussion that is incomplete, that is complete without a little bit of talk about product mix. If I'm just driving an ATV with a little tiny snowplow blade on it, that's a much different hourly billable rate than driving my giant snowplow. So I think once you've got accurate financial records, it's much easier to dig into those types of decisions.
Yeah, I mean, I think CPAs like to, it's nice to have a second eye, a separate independent eye to look at, even various departments within your business. You can really analyze, is this one making, are we making money on this one, or what's happening here? Which product isn't working? Should we keep it? Should we get rid of it? Just a lot of important business decisions. So the last section that we will kind of briefly touch on, this one, I mean, we could talk about this one for a long time. There's just a lot of variables, but I felt like we should briefly talk about a little bit of tax. So for small businesses, often we get new clients who say, hey, I set up a business, it's me and my wife, I set up a partnership, and, but the wife or the husband, one of them doesn't really do much. They don't realize that by the way they set things up, it causes a separate tax filing, and just a lot of additional costs that aren't necessarily needed right now. So I'd say the biggest thing to take away from this is before you set up a business, or if you're thinking of electing S Corp or C Corp or anything like that, it's definitely a good idea to talk to your CPA. We get so many questions, daily of, all right, how should we structure this business? Most people start as a single member LLC. Tax-wise, that and the partnership are taxed the same. It's just a separate tax filing for a partnership. I think one of the biggest things that business owners do not quite understand when they're first getting into business is that the income you take home or the cash flow does not necessarily equate out to what your taxable income is going to be. So a lot of times people, have a business and say, well, I didn't pull any money out, but you earned 60 grand net income on that business. So you still are taxed on that 60 grand net income. So there's just a lot of very important details for businesses that's really great to get the guidance of your CPA before you set anything up. We spend so much time with our small businesses just doing tax planning throughout the year. The end of the year, we'll do a lot of projections. Hey, should we go and buy that snowplow? We run, projections just to see where they're at tax-wise, if they need to make additional purchases, just a lot of big decisions like that we feel are pretty important. So before diving in and just setting things up randomly, it's definitely a good idea to get some guidance. We do understand that, CPAs and bookkeepers may not necessarily be the cheapest, but you really do have to, figure out the costs and see if they outweigh the benefits on this. A lot of times people figure out, all right, it's worth me paying you to do this and to help me through this because it's going to save me money in taxes. And it gives, especially the bookkeeping aspect, it keeps, the owners of the businesses doing what they're good at doing, which is running the business. A lot of business owners, this isn't, numbers is not their thing, and that's okay. And that's what professionals are here for. So I definitely suggest, at least considering it. A lot of great CPAs and bookkeepers and accountants in town. So just doing some interviews and talking to some people, I think is a really great idea. And I think that is all we have for this topic. Wanted to thank you guys again for joining us, and we'll look forward to the questions and answers after this.
We'll hand it back to you, Katie.
Great. Super good overview. Thanks to both of you. And we're going to move along in our presentation now. We're going to ask Margot to join us from the bookkeeper side of the house and share a few insights from her end. So Margot, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you guys today. I'm going to go ahead and share screen. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Excellent. maybe. There we go. I'm Margot Cartwright. I'm the principal of the Business Butlers, and I'm going to give you a little overview of my credentials so that you get a feel for what it's like to have a high-level bookkeeper. I built my career in the workforce. I finished my bachelor's degree in 2019 and have accumulated more than 25 years of experience in bookkeeping, human resources, and administrative support services. I'm a member of the National Association of Certified Bookkeepers, the Society of Human Resource Management, and of course our local Ben Chamber. The team over at Price and Frank covered some of this information, but I'm going to go a little more in depth because I found that for my clients, sometimes it can be a little confusing of what resource do I use to get my bookkeeping handled? There's the bookkeeper, there's the CPA, but there's also the paid tax preparer. So our CPAs, the team over at Price and Frank is excellent. You will not go wrong with them. A paid tax preparer, think H&R Block, they're probably not going to be doing bookkeeping services for you unless you deliver a shoebox of receipts when it comes tax time. And then your bookkeeper, they deal with your cyclical financial activity. They can do some balance sheet maintenance for you if they have the experience to do so. But their key is managing that day-to-day activity, keeping it in order, reconciling your accounts. That gives you a view into the income and expenses of your business. Also helps you keep an eye on fraud, super important in today's age. What do you look for when you're selecting your bookkeeper? And there's a couple of different ways to look at this. Are you going to be hiring someone to function in-house as an employee? Or are you going to be looking to an outsourced resource? When you're selecting that bookkeeper, you want to look for their education. Did they learn in the workforce? Or did they get a certificate? There's a 1-year certificate, 2-year certificate, there's a bachelor's degree. And you're going to have different levels of performance based on their experience in education. Culture fit. Are you comfortable with the individual? Can you talk comfortably about your financial activities? This is really important for the transfer of financial data so that your bookkeeping is accurate. The cost of your resource. An in-house employee is going to be a little less expensive than outsourced, but you're probably going to be dealing with some time constraint issues, probably going to need to do some training. So will you be hiring someone to assist with that coaching and training, or will you be training them yourselves? There's learning about the operations of your business, and all of that takes time. An outsourced bookkeeper is a great solution when you have an immediate need, but it is going to be a little more expensive because you're paying for that knowledge, for that experience, so that they can step in and deal with your financial activities with little coaching and support. You will need to be available to answer questions for them as they get familiar with your business, but they can typically operate pretty independently. And then your CPA's office, their focus is tax, making sure you're in an excellent tax position. But many of the CPA's office will offer bookkeeper services, going to be a little more expensive. The benefit of using a CPA's office is that you have a bookkeeper who's directly connected to your CPA. They know how your CPA likes to see the data and can have you well prepared when it comes tax time. The other thing to consider when you're looking at your bookkeeper resource, I call it the Bookkeeper Spectrum. So from the outside looking in, it seems like bookkeeping is bookkeeping. It's just numbers. And if someone can deal with numbers, then they're fine. But there's actually a full spectrum of activity on that bookkeeping line. And you can have a simple data entry person, someone who's brand new to bookkeeping and can process numbers, but probably doesn't understand the full cycle of bookkeeping and why it's important to have that information in order. You have your midline bookkeeper who's got some background. They've maybe got a couple of years of experience. They may or may not have a certificate, but they can get you through a full cycle of bookkeeping and provide you reports. They may not have any insight on that data, but they can provide information to you as you ask questions. And then at the beginning, I gave you some of my credentials. With more than 25 years of experience, I've seen a lot of different environments, a lot of different industries, and some very interesting things show up in accounting. And have worked with CPAs to work through some of those issues. And so there aren't too many issues I can't solve independently. But again, that comes with experience. It doesn't happen naturally. So do you outsource or do you hire an employee? That depends on your goal as the business owner. Outsourcing, you get that hopefully quality bookkeeping, someone who knows what they're doing and can deliver the financial statements. They may be able to assist you with accounting process development. Some bookkeepers do and some do not offer payroll services. There are a number of independent payroll services where that is all they do. There are pros and cons to having a completely separate payroll service. So again, it goes back to you as a business owner. What are your goals? What do you want to accomplish? What's your forward look? Your forward thinking look like? Where do you want to land 3 years, 5 years from now? Coaching, high-level bookkeeper can offer you some coaching, whether it's coaching your bookkeeping staff to better develop their skills or to coach you as a business owner in learning some of the bookkeeping activities. You as a business owner should at least have an insight if you don't have your hands into the bookkeeping yourself. This will protect you and give you an understanding of the flow of information. And then if you've outsourced your bookkeeping services, there is a transition timing. Let's assume that as we recover from our recent events, that your business is just growing insanely. You're being insanely successful. You're adding staff. You have cash flow going on, and some of the pressures of the past year have dissipated. There will be a time when you're going to want to hire an in-house bookkeeper, probably a combination role, bookkeeper, human resource, administrative support. And an outsourced resource can assist you with that transition timing. How do you know when it's time? I have found between 7 and 10 employees, you've come close to that time. But there's also volume of activity. You may not have 10 employees, but a lot of accounting activity. So volume of activity, the intimate knowledge required to execute your accounting activities, that all goes into how do you deal with that bookkeeping process. Now, if you choose to go with an employee, you have someone who's working in-house with you. You want to make sure you establish healthy expectations for that bookkeeper. Do you understand their experience, their background, their education, so that you can set those expectations and growth expectations? If they're a younger bookkeeper, less experienced bookkeeper, you want to develop an understanding of how do you want them to progress? What does that look like? Because you as the business owner want to be doing the things that you do best. Your in-house employee, they have an intimate knowledge of your business and operations that can assist them in processing your accounting data. I have a couple of clients that have retail outlets, and the intimate knowledge is critical for accurately processing that information. You get the collaboration with an employee. We have great resources in the community for our CPAs and our bookkeepers, but especially during tax time, I'm sure you have discovered they can be difficult to get a hold of. That in-house person is a great resource for collaboration. They can be watching operations. They can be assisting with developing the flow of information. And then that person who's growing with your company always has growth potential. They're a good fit for your team if they're helping you grow that administrative side of the business, if they're growing in responsibilities. The opportunity to give them more responsibility and grow in their bookkeeping understanding and what they can contribute to your business in that regard is huge and really limitless and based on your desires as the business owner. The biggest challenge right now is the fact that there is a distinct lack of highly skilled bookkeepers. I have talked to a number of people that would like to do bookkeeping, but they need to have experience in order to get hired. If you've gone out and tried to hire an outsourced bookkeeper, you've discovered that there are a number of them that are not taking new clients. And that is simply because of the lack of workers as compared to the volume of work. So how do we solve that? The solutions are you can do the bookkeeping yourself. I truly recommend that business owners not do their own bookkeeping. It is a stopgap and a self-check. Having someone else doing your bookkeeping, whether an employee or an outsourced resource, just keeps everything in order. It keeps your accounting in order. And hopefully when it reaches the CPA, your bookkeeping has been done well, and they can just get to what they do best, which is managing your taxes and your tax position. You can hire an employee. You may have some training involved. That's, again, either providing the coach or doing the training yourself. It's going to be a little bit lower cost as far as paying the employee, but it can be time intensive, just depending on your circumstances and where that person is in their learning experience in growing their professional services. And then outsourcing your bookkeeping services, going to be a little more expensive than having an employee, but you're hopefully outsourcing to someone who does what they do well, that you can expect timely delivery of services. You want to make sure you screen that person, that they're established in your community, that they have some references, that they've got some credentials behind them to establish them as a quality bookkeeping resource. And then, of course, you want to understand the volume of work that you want done as compared to that bookkeeper's availability. Now, why does this all matter? The grand scheme of things gets back to the practical application of your financial reports. I have, in this past tax season, I have done a number of annual cleanups where people have handled their own books and then they bring it to a bookkeeper for cleanup before it gets to the CPA. The challenge with that is the things that I have found in that bookkeeping cleanup have dramatically affected the tax outcome for those business owners. And so keeping your bookkeeping current, getting financial reports on a monthly basis will ensure that you have current and accurate financial information so that you have a better understanding of what's transpiring in your business. What income do you have coming in? What expenses do you have going out? Having those eyes on managing the financial data so that you can identify fraud possibilities. Do you have a cost center that has exploded on you? Anybody dealing with commodities, wood, metal, anything like that have seen an explosion in cost for their materials? The way you see that, besides feeling it when your checking account balance is draining and it's not real clear why, your financial reports will give you that information. If they're done well, you're going to be able to see exactly where that cost change has occurred, and you can make quick business decisions to adjust to that. Keeping your balance sheet in order that tells you how much you have and how much you owe. And it tells you the value of your business. It helps you see what's happening to all of the energy you're putting into your business, all the resources that you're using, the monies that you're paying out to staff. That all feeds through to your balance sheet to tell you what your business is worth. So ultimately, you want to keep those financial reports in order. You want to keep your finances current. You want to make sure you have current monthly financials so that you're getting accurate data on what's happening in your business. It matters when it comes time for your quarterly estimated taxes. You want to make sure you're making accurate payments and that you don't get a surprise at the end of the year. It matters at the end of the year come tax season when you need to deliver financials information to your CPA so that they can execute your taxes and not have to file an extension and not have challenges in that area. You will be a better business owner. Your business will function more healthy, and you'll be able to make more timely decisions to respond to economic changes. And that is what I have for you. Thank you so much for letting me join you today.
Really great stuff. Thanks so much, Margot. Thanks to all three of you. That's a really great high-level overview of the difference between the two and what you should be thinking about, how these folks can help. I do have several questions in the queue. I think one of them got answered about what point should a service business be looking to add a bookkeeper. And Margot, I think you spent a lot of time on that issue. But if you had anything to add to that, besides what you had on the slides, would you have any points of advice, especially for service industry, service business?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So yes, is the short answer. Trying to process all of these thoughts. Should a business be looking to add a bookkeeper? That again goes back to how much volume of work. If you need a bookkeeper for 2 hours a week, it may not be time yet to hire a bookkeeper. So then you start thinking about, should I learn how to do some of these things myself? Should I outsource that task until the business grows more and requires more services? And oftentimes that outsourced bookkeeper can be the stopgap while your business grows, while you manage that activity, and yet keep your hands out of your own accounting. As a bookkeeper, I don't do my own accounting. I have a bookkeeper do it for me so that it stays honest and it stays accurate.
Great, thanks. So this next question is to all three of you, really. I know when I was looking to hire a director of finance a few years ago, one of the options that I was considering was having somebody who was outsourced or remote. So outsourcing and remote, it's a bit different. And I've seen a lot of stuff on my LinkedIn account and around about hiring CPAs and bookkeepers as remote employees. One could say that's really similar to outsourcing, just calling it a different thing. But if you could comment on that, because I think a lot of startups and a lot of folks who are looking at new ways of doing business, especially with a growing remote workforce, what are the pluses and minuses of going that route? And Margot, go ahead and start, and then Heather and Daniel will go to you next.
This is a great question, given everything that has been experienced over the past year. I've dealt with this issue myself in looking for staff to assist me, and I do have one over in Salem. One of the challenges with remote workers is your bookkeeper, your CPA is responsible for the security of the data that they are handling. And so you want to make sure, if you're going to be looking at a remote worker or a remote contractor, that they are able to fulfill that responsibility, that they can keep your data secure to the best of their ability. And like I'm an electronic filer, I have additional requirements from the IRS for the security of data. And there's a liability associated with that. And I know CPAs deal with that as well because they do electronic filing. So the biggest concern there is the security of data. And then the next would be the commitment to the work. Can they do the work remotely? Can they stay focused? Can they get you taken care of in a timely fashion? There are a lot of people who have had to adjust to working remotely, but that's really not their best performance. There are challenges with that. The ability to stay focused at home versus in an office space. So lots to consider there. If you're going to go that route, you want to make sure you get references, make sure they're established, and ask about their systems and their processes in place to manage your data and secure that data to the best of their ability.
Great. Heather, Daniel, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, Margot, you were pretty spot on with what my response was going to be. We've seen, same as you, a lot of staff even applying for here. A lot of the requirements are, I want to work remote. I don't want to be in the office. I want to work remote. For us, it's more of a little bit of a trust issue dealing with such sensitive information. So we, as a personal firm preference, we'd rather people, work in-house, get to know them, earn the trust, gain the experience, make sure that, their quality is exactly where we want. And then sure, if you want to work from home a little bit, great. I would say we still have a lot of, as far as clients and remote work goes, we have a lot of clients who don't live here. It's the day and age of electronic, we use secure share file. You just need to make sure you're being really, really smart with how you're sharing information. We have a lot of clients moving all over the place. I want out of Oregon, so they're in Arizona. So we still do all of their work. Sometimes it's not quite as efficient. Sometimes it's really efficient. So it really depends on the person. And as far as looking to potentially hire a bookkeeper or a CPA remote, just make sure, as Margot said, you're getting references, you're really doing your research. You know, have a personal reference as to someone who's worked with them directly. It is very, very sensitive information that you're dealing with. So you really want to make sure you have a lot of trust in the person that you're hiring. So do your work in researching that before you make any decisions.
And I think to piggyback on that, it's important, especially in choosing a CPA, to have someone that's knowledgeable in the tax jurisdictions that you're filing in. It's a good question to ask if you're hiring a remote CPA to let them know, I live in Portland. Portland has some different filing requirements than the rest of Oregon. Making sure that what you're contracting this person to do is an area that they already have some experience in.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. I would imagine you've also seen an increase in the amount of folks who do what you do that are working from home and remotely. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of our partners lives in Idaho.
Yeah. Yeah. We do have a remote partner.
She does
Yeah.
amazing
And it
work,
works great.
and she drives back and forth sometimes when she needs to be here. But
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I can only imagine. So next question is on one of my favorite not topics is the corporate activities tax. This is for you too. So the question is, which resource will normally come up with a CAT tax estimate? Do you consider a bookkeeper or a CPA in-house function since it's based on gross income projections, or is it, so can you count it as labor, whether it's in-house or an outsource type of thing?
As CPAs, we do a lot of estimating of different types of taxes in the Oregon corporate activities tax is a new one for 2020. That's impacting folks with gross receipts over $1 million a year. So that's definitely something we've worked with a lot of clients on. The calculation of the tax isn't all that complicated once you've figured out the categorization of your revenues and expenses. So it's a little bit more heady thought process to make sure you're classifying things properly. And then once you've gone through that exercise, it's a little bit easier to calculate.
Yeah, I would say the CAT, we did a lot of them. I think it's a joint effort between the CPA and the bookkeeper. The records need to be in good order to give to the CPA to prep that CAT return or the CAT estimates. What Margot was saying, if you have, monthly and quarterly reports, you can accurately give that to your CPA. And Margot, when you get here, you can let us know. I don't know if you've been prepping many of the estimates or any CAT returns, so we'll let you get there. But we've done a lot of them. That was a crazy last, month and a half of trying to get all those out the door. But where we really struggled was the books that came in that were not in order. So trying to get through and get the books to a place where we could actually file the return or get them estimates was really difficult for those ones. The ones that had everything in order, it was easy to get out the door. So again, if you are doing the estimates during the year, having the records in order is going to get you pretty darn close to being accurate. Whereas you're making huge year-end adjustments, you're going to be pretty far off and there could be penalties and interest. So joint effort, I would say. Okay.
And for those of you, the corporate activities tax passed in the 2019 session, right? Right.
Yep.
And it is a gross receipts tax for organizations making $1 million or more, gross, not net. And if you're making in your business 750,000 or more over year, you also have to file with the state, just so you are on record as approaching $1 million. So just a little background for those of you who might not know what the CAT tax is. Margot, did you have anything to add to what Heather and Daniel said?
My short answer is there are topics that I leave to the professionals, and that is one of them. When it comes to the cat tax, and it's come up a couple of times with my clients, I lean on the CPA for guidance because I sat in on a couple of workshops with the state, and there were still a lot of unanswered questions at the time I was trying to get this down. And so I focus on making sure the books are right. And then I go, okay, CPA, tell me, how do I take care of this for them? So there are times where that CPA really is the best resource because I care about the accuracy of what the client is being told. And there are some topics that are best left to those in that seat.
Thanks. Yeah. Especially with new legislation like that, a new tax. We're all trying to figure this out together, and
Yes.
Heather and Daniel's boss, Wes, has been in the thick of in its development and trying to untangle what it actually means to businesses. So if you're in that category of 750,000 to $1 million, having a good CPA is a very good idea.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, so next question is from somebody who is a child care provider. About 2/3 in Central Oregon are actually home-based, not centers. And the majority don't have any financial assistance. And they're probably just trying to figure out how to do this on their own. So what are your thoughts using QuickBooks rather than a bookkeeper or any other programs? What are the pros and cons of going it alone? That's you, Margo.
I was going to say, I'm just going to go ahead and chime in. A vast majority of my clients actually use QuickBooks, and they have hired me to manage their accounting for them. So we're talking about two different issues. We're talking about software versus bookkeeping services. A lot of small business owners, a lot of home-based business owners do their own bookkeeping and accounting. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can go out to YouTube and learn all kinds of skills in relation to bookkeeping. There are quick 5 and 10-minute videos for different pieces of bookkeeping. I provide coaching for some of my clients is where that's specifically what I'm doing. I'm not taking the bookkeeping away from them. I'm helping them learn how to do the tasks that they need to do for their business, because not all bookkeeping tasks are executed for all businesses. There are some more complex tasks that a home-based business may never use. And so why learn that if you're not going to use it, right? But you do need a software if you're going to do more complex activities. I have a couple of clients that do their bookkeeping in an Excel workbook. I assure you, it's a very simple model that they're working with, and it serves them. I help them learn how to use those pieces so that their bookkeeping is in order when it's time for taxes. As you get more complex, if you're billing clients, if you're tracking multiple expenses, if you have vendors where you're paying invoices, you've got bank accounts and credit cards that you want to track, you definitely want to have a software. QuickBooks is and I hate saying this, but QuickBooks is the 800-pound gorilla in the marketplace. They provide a wide range of tools for a very reasonable cost comparatively. There are free resources out there. You will find them very limited in what they do, but they may be a perfect fit for what you're trying to accomplish. And so it's just a matter of determining what are you trying to accomplish, what task do you want to complete, and how do you want that to happen? If you are pulling your hair out at midnight trying to get your bookkeeping done because you don't have time for it during the day, it may be time to outsource that task, because I guarantee you that a skilled bookkeeper can do it in a fraction of the time that it takes you to accomplish it. Or if you have time for it and you just don't know how to do it, I'd point you to YouTube videos. There's some online universities that have quick training classes on simple bookkeeping, or hire a coach. There are a number of people that provide coaching services and can help you learn the things that you need to learn to do that bookkeeping.
Yep. Anything else to add, Heather, Daniel? Okay.
No, I think I should cover that one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Margot, you're on again. And this is a great question, given you were just talking in your presentation about the lack of CPAs and bookkeepers, and maybe you two could weigh in on this first then. So there's somebody who's wanting to be a bookkeeper specifically, and they're self-teaching. So they're asking for advice. Any courses, any certification processes? How do you get to a point if you're teaching yourself or just trying to get into that career? What's a good pathway to getting the training that you need to be really good at this?
Should we jump in on that one first? I mean, I'm not an expert at it, but I know that there's a lot of tools out there. COCC offers a 2 or 3 day course on QuickBooks Basics. The common scenario we run into is actually folks who, there's a family business and one family member takes on the bookkeeping. That's their, they're good with finances and with numbers, and they get into that role of being the bookkeeper for the business, but they don't go out and get any additional training. And you can really save yourself a lot of time and make that information a lot more useful by either going online, there's a lot of free stuff out there on YouTube, or spending a couple days in a classroom, and then maybe doing some continuing education as you progress into that role. I'm not as knowledgeable about the specific resources, so maybe we'll hand that one off to Margot.
I bet Margot is. Margot, what do you think? If you were educating yourself to get a job as a bookkeeper, what would you do?
I actually love this question because I did build my career in the workforce before I went and got my degree. And it can be done. It is a matter of what industry do you love? Because my recommendation outside of taking a course, doing online courses, if you try to do, and this is just a sidebar, if you try to do the QuickBooks training thinking they're going to teach you bookkeeping, they are not. They are teaching you how to use their software, assuming that you already know how to execute bookkeeping tasks. Super important difference there. My recommendation would be to get a job with a company that wants to allow you to work into a bookkeeping role. That is exactly how I started, and I continued to grow, and different jobs gave me different skills. Now, if you're in midlife trying to do this, my best recommendation is to go take some classes. COCC has their certificate program that will give you the crash course in bookkeeping and allow you to get functional so that you can get out and get some experience. But I have thoroughly enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the variety of industries I've worked in, and I would recommend it for anyone who's interested.
Yeah, and I understand I've heard a lot of articles in the news lately about people changing careers. The pandemic did a lot for those of us who lived through a lot of stuff and tried to balance home life, work life, and there's, I'm sure, maybe an opportunity there to get more bookkeepers and CPAs.
Mm-hmm.
So the next question is from a bookkeeping and tax perspective. Daniel, Heather, I'm going to start with you. So I've also been hearing a lot about Bitcoin and Ethereum and whatever. There's a great skit on Saturday Night Live, if you haven't seen it, about this kind of thing. I don't get it, but there are a lot of people who do. So cryptocurrencies as payment methods for products or services. How are you seeing that show up in bookkeeping? How are you seeing it show up in tax preparation?
Most of what we're seeing in tax preparation is people just buying and selling, essentially trading it like stocks or other assets. And the tax treatment is very much a lot like buying and selling stocks. But that gets a little bit more complicated, because if you're buying goods in Bitcoin or other digital currencies, number one, because of the volatility, and number two, there's almost a foreign currency type translation. Whatever the value of the Bitcoin, if you buy a truck, for instance, and you're going to use that vehicle in your business, you really need to know what the value of the Bitcoin was at the instant that you traded it for the truck. So that adds a layer of of tracking. There are software tools out there that help you do that really well, depending on what kind of digital wallet you use. But I think it adds another layer of complexity to the accounting, which we take for granted, which is that everything we do is in dollars for the most part. And adds kind of almost like a foreign currency adjustment to every transaction that you make in digital currency.
Right. Margot, anything from the bookkeeping side?
I actually haven't had, I've got one client that dabbles in Bitcoin, and I treat it as an asset, knowing that the CPAs are going to be working their magic when it comes tax time.
Yep.
Okay. So a few other questions, and we're about 8 minutes out. So what prep work do you expect from, I'm going to say, a really small business? Let's say I've got myself and one or two other employees. It was a startup. Things are going good. I'm saying I need a CPA. I need a bookkeeper. And I just don't know exactly what the conversation looks like. What should I bring to the table with me when you, let's say I choose you guys to hire you? What type of information and that would you need to know up front that would really kickstart your working relationship with a new client? Heather and Daniel, want to go first?
Yeah, we'll start on that. I think that's a great question, because we definitely have a lot of people who, usually before, new client meetings, I kind of give them a rough list of information to bring or what to gather, what to have prepared, just in their head for us to go over. But sometimes we definitely have new clients who come in and, have no idea, don't bring anything. So I would say information that we need, if it's a new startup, or even within the first, year or two of business, I'd say any documents, organizational documents, articles of incorporation, any setup documents that you have. That's always good, just to get us in the system so we can read through if there's any partnership agreements, any specific things that we need to know about. That's probably one of the top items. And then just the records in order so that we can actually look and decipher what they mean. If they're small and they just started, at least if we can have, even if it's an Excel spreadsheet, income, expenses. A lot of times it's just kind of conversational as we sit and go over, okay, you don't have a balance sheet. Let's chat about what should be on your balance sheet. All right, do you have a car? What kind of cash accounts do you have? Do you have a credit card? Do you have any trucks, vehicles, assets, anything? So a lot of times it's, while you're in the meeting, just conversational, trying to figure out all of the pieces to put together, especially a first year tax return. It's a lot of conversation, just figuring out all the pieces. If you don't ask the questions, a lot of times, new business owners don't know to tell you these things. So it's just trying to pry the information out of them so that you can, prep things how they need to be. And teamwork with a bookkeeper is huge, especially if, if it's just a few items, okay, that's fine. But if they have some activity, it's nice to have those records, in order so we can be like, oh, you might have a tax issue here. We really need to do some planning. Just so we can kind of look at the books. Anything else?
The only thing I'll add to that is the timing issue. I think in February, March, and the first 2 weeks of April, we usually don't have time to meet with new clients. If you go looking for a tax accountant during that time period, you're going to really struggle. So just plan your year accordingly so that you're prepared for this year's tax filings before February of next year.
Yeah, that's a great point. We are very, very busy. When we get client calls March and April, it's really hard to, the first question is, can we put you on extension? So it's not good. I mean, I think it's more productive to, plan ahead. If you plan on switching CPAs or getting a CPA for the next year, do it at the end of the year so that you establish, so that you all have time to get everything prepared. You're in the system, and then going forward, it's smooth sailing. So
Great advice. Thank you. Margot, what's yours?
I can actually reiterate a lot of that last portion of what they had to say as far as timing. When I had clients calling in February, I just told them they needed to file an extension just because of the volume of work. While the business owners were dealing with the applications for the PPP and the EIDL and managing the documentation required for that, there was just as much work created for the bookkeepers and the CPAs, which compounded this year's tax season. And so having those items in order is super important. I start out with a 30-minute consultation with my clients or potential clients. One, that gives us an opportunity to make sure it's going to be a good fit. I talked a little bit about that culture. Do we communicate well? Are we comfortable talking about those pieces of information related to the business? And we collaboratively develop a process of communication. What pieces need to be managed? Do they have payroll? Do they have an outsourced payroll service? If not, do we need to manage payroll? Do they have a software they're using? Have they established their bookkeeping, or are we going from scratch? There's a lot of details around making sure that financial data is in order.
Great. Really super good advice. Folks, I want to thank all of you, all three of you, for providing your insights. I know that the burnout level at this time of year must be. And in the age of COVID, I don't know what your travel plans are of getting out of town, but I hope you do something to take care of yourselves. I know it's been a rough few months, always is, for what you folks do for a living this time of year. One thing I want to remind the viewers that there is a link to a survey in the chat section right now. If you could fill that out and identify what other resources you might be in need of. Our partnership, the Small Business Recovery Partnership, is really interested in getting the right expertise to you to help you get into a place where you feel stable, growing, and just like you've got a handle on things. And we'd love to help. So please do take that survey. Again, thanks to Price Frank. Thanks to the business butlers. And I really appreciate all of your time and your individual expertise. Hope you all got something out of this as well in viewer land. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you,
thank
Katie.
you.